Welcome to the Naked Coach Collective. We're not just your average coaches, we're your powerhouse of inspiration and your no-nonsense guide to unlocking your hidden potential. We are an eclectic mix of four, each with a unique journey, but we share a passion for transformation through coaching. Tune in every week for topical discussions and witty banter on all things coaching. There might be a few laughs along the way too, but don't be fooled. We're serious about helping you navigate life's twists and turns with clarity and confidence. Are you ready? Sit back, relax, and immerse yourself in the Naked Coach Collective podcast.
Yeah.
Wowzers. Okay.
Oh.
Marks out of 10.
Very well done, everyone.
I do think I'll have to cut that down a little bit.
You reckon? Maybe into a couple of sessions, or maybe 3. Wow. Listen to the slot, eh? Ooh.
We're all right at this podcast in Malarkey, aren't we?
Oh, I say. I'm going to share something with you guys, just as a little bit of what's it. I got given this yesterday. It's my retirement.
Oh, hang on, let me put my glasses back on.
You'll love to see it. It's my retirement weekly schedule mug.
Okay, episode done.
So
I think that covers it.
that's it.
So simple.
What is a niche? Because this is something that we have all looked at, all battled with, all changed, all tweaked, all, it's a little bit of a contentious one, isn't it, really? So this is the Oxford Dictionary here.
Mm-hmm.
A specialised segment of the market for a particular kind of product or service. E.g., he believes he's found a niche in the market. Very simple, but I thought that was the one that really explains it.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay, episode done.
so
I think that covers it.
that's it.
So simple.
So if you were looking at supporting people interested in coaching now, right? Let's look at that arena.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them regarding niche? Because I found it through training, I found it a battleground.
I think
unnerving.
Yeah, you're right. It was a battle, and I think it was a battle actually. I don't think Ian so much, but definitely for us 3 girls. I think it was because it was talked about and emphasized so much. And yeah, you do have to have a starting point. Absolutely. I get why you have to sort of try and drill that out at the beginning, but I do think that it overwhelms and stresses everyone out when they're trying to put it into words, because what you want to do and then actually writing it in like an I help statement to show people your niche is 2 different things. And that's choosing my niche to me came naturally to do something that I was passionate about. But then as time goes on, like you said, that changes.
Yeah.
So I think the one piece of advice I would give to start with is choose what comes first, start the journey, and then you might find that things change, tweak, or evolve.
They definitely did for me, because I think the starting point is the passion. It has to be
Definitely passion.
What brings you alive, what sparks you, what makes you go, oh yes, I want to wake up tomorrow and I want to get on and do something. So that passion has got to be there. But then you've got to tie that in with, well, where's your talent lie? And talent can be cultivated and talent can be taught and learned, but you have to have the passion, then you have to do the learning, and so the niche that I started out with is not the niche that I totally have today. As you were saying, we've all been through that point, and then you really have to think about how you can help people. So passion, what do I know? Where's my talent lie? And then how can I support? And really, I think a lot of time it gets missed. Who do I want to work with? we don't all want to work with everybody. So where do the passion, the talent, the will to want to work with them, and who you want to work with and how you want to help them, those things all come together to create your niche, and they change. As we are testament here today, ladies, not so much Ian, but they change. So listen to yourself. Listen to yourself, write lists. I am a list writer, so write lists and keep coming back to it. Keep coming back to it. Don't be scared to evolve and change your niche.
I think what I found interesting going through that process when we were training, and it's I link it to a very simple analogy of when you learn to drive, isn't it? When you learn to drive, you learn all these things, blah, 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 you pass your test, but then you learn to drive, isn't it? Same with coaching. It's like I feel with looking at it with a bit of hindsight now is that you need to know the nuts and bolts of coaching, and it's okay to train that way. Take that avenue if you don't know what your niche is. Grab things that are passionate, keep thinking, do your lists, keep that information going. And I find coming in as an older person with a pretty full-on career and a full-on life with lots of events, because they often say to you, look for your pain points, don't they?
Yeah.
Get your own
So,
journey. I literally had conversations going, well, there's been quite a lot. So I could niche, I could coach in then how do you choose? I found that was initially quite daunting to think, oh God, because the pressure was on, really, wasn't it? To that, right, get your niche, it's really important. But I think this is one reason we're doing these podcasts, isn't it? To say, hang on a minute. Yes, you do need to find your niche, but give yourself a little bit of time. Get the idea in your head. Start with something you're passionate about, but leave that door open and evolve as you go through it, isn't it? Because it doesn't have to happen, and it's perfectly okay to change, to grow, to alter it, until you find the right one. But the nuts and bolts coaching, you learn the nuts and bolts, and then you can just ironically attach it to your niche, can't you? You lose those skills, because those skills are the same. That's why they say to you, you could, in essence, coach anybody.
Yeah.
But obviously, when you're doing your niche and your business, it's got to be something really. Passion is the top one for me. You've got to be passionate about it. What about you, Ian?
I think from my perspective, I see it as I'm very much forward thinking. So I've got my idea 10 years down the line of where I want to be, who I want to be coaching, and all that kind of stuff. But from the niche aspect, I see that as the vehicle for getting there. And that vehicle can change at some point along the journey. It doesn't matter as long as the end point is still the same in my head. And when I get to that end point, that will then change. And that may have a completely different vehicle again. So from my perspective, yes, it's very important to have a niche. I feel like there is pressure put on people to kind of define it straight away and do it like that. Whereas from my perspective, it's a case of, well, the more people you talk to, the more you'll know and figure out your niche as well. So I'll use an example here. So I obviously put that post out in a Facebook group and then got a client off the back of that. And there was I didn't tell that person what I did as my niche. I just said, I can help you in this way with these 3 different things, which form part of what I do, but it's not the full picture. And the type of person she is makes me realize that I want to help that type of person a bit more than I currently do. And that is people who love traveling, which obviously kind of links back to me as well, because I love traveling and obviously went traveling for a year as well. So I started thinking about that as well and how I can maybe start to incorporate that. And that's a slight tweak on my niche, not a full kind of depart from where it is now, but it's just a slight tweak, and that vehicle slightly changed again. But I feel like there's a pressure put on people to know this straight away, and it's like you say, it's a case of you don't need to know it straight away. Just get out there, talk to people, and you'll find it, I think. But it is like a guiding North Star. I don't know if that's the right terminology to use, but it is a guide essentially to help you along the journey in your coaching business, I think.
So
Well,
do
it's a
you-
guide to help you set up your pillars of your coaching business and what you're going to talk about and what you're going to coach in, isn't it? That's what the guide is it's for. But I think also with the niche thing is get coached on it. I know that sounds strange, but you can ask, there's specialists in the coaching niche finding, but actually a business coach will help you do that. They'll coach you. They'll help you really find what's below the surface. And this is what we were talking about with coaching. It's not just what's sitting on the surface, what you automatically comes to your head. Sometimes when you give yourself space to think about it or go to a coach and get it dragged out of you. I don't mean it like that, but you know what I mean. But it is, and I would say if you're finding it, the one thing I found about niche, and the one thing I've had to really let go of through my coaching journey is perfectionism. So if you are a perfectionist, niche gets you in a tither. It really does, because you want to get it so right and so perfect at that moment. But what I've also learned is, like Ian said, it's a starting point, because my journey with niche has somewhat changed and is just slightly changed again recently. So it's, if you are a perfectionist and you're thinking, I've got to get this right, I've got to get absolutely, it's got to be, okay, just step back from that. And that's why I say get coached, because if you're a perfectionist, being coached on this really does help. Okay. And it can just take a session, really, sometimes, a session just to get clear on what it is you want to coach in. But always remember it's your starting point, and always remember the door's open. It's a bit like opportunities. If you close the door once you've had one opportunity, you'll never realize when the other opportunities arrive. Okay. If you do the same with your niche, like Cian says, as you get talking, as you get coaching, it takes you in different directions. Everybody who you coach has different needs and wants, and you'll find it.
There was one thing I heard the other day. I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember what it was, and they were talking about perfectionism, and one of them was arguing for it, and the other one was arguing against it, and they kind of met in the middle. And it was interesting how they met in the middle. And the guy who was arguing against it was all about, well, just taking perfect action, blah blah blah, as everyone says. And this guy who was all for it was like, but I want things to be right. And how they met in the middle was, the guy who was for just imperfect action was saying so, and he was the one who was coaching the guy who was all for perfectionism, and he was saying, so how far have you moved in this year that you've been trying to do what you've been trying to do? And he says, oh, well, I've done this, and this. And he's like, right, okay, I did that in a month. And look where we are differently. He says, how about you be a perfectionist at the right things that matter the most, and the other things that don't really matter, like how your logo looks. Do you really need to be a perfectionist on how your logo looks? Do you really need to be a perfectionist on this, and this? Why not concentrate on being a perfectionist at what you're talking about, the things that matter? I thought that was quite an interesting take.
So if you're concentrating on the things that you don't need to get perfect, logo, etc., and you're just doing it and doing it and doing it, and then you're doing it again because it wasn't perfect, doing it again, it wasn't perfect, in a month's time, think of all the experience you've gained. Think of everything that you've learned by doing it wrong, or not exactly how you wanted it all those times. So there is still value in just knocking it out and just learning from it. And like you say, those really important things, get your knowledge down. That needs to be on point, work on those things. But the things you can afford to not get perfect straight away, accept that it's a learning curve.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you were to accept that mistakes or errors or, wrong decisions are actually a learning point, and just change a little bit of mindset around that. You know, I've chosen something, okay, 6 months down the line or however long, it wasn't quite right, but it's a learning point. You would never get to where you're going if you don't make those steps along the way. So choose something, accept that might be wrong, might not work, might, you know, and enjoy the process. Enjoy all the
Imperfect
process.
action, isn't that the word?
Right. When
Yeah.
you perfectionist, I thought, yeah, that's like, I think everybody in their head has a certain level of perfectionism within them. And whether they realize it or not as they're going along, you know, we all want to get things right.
Mm.
We
And
do.
we also all want to have it to happen quickly, which is, I think, that what we realized we thought when we first joined and we trained, and it's going to be quick, it's going to give us money, it's going to do, but actually breaks on. This is why, again, we've come together, isn't it? Reality. This is the reality of our coaching journeys. Other people's are different. We're all different. But I think it's been open and honest, and it's okay to sort of keep rolling. And, you know, like a magnet, you attract more the right things you go along. The people that, you know, it's that classic, if you put it out there, if you know, however you look at it, whether you look at it like mantras or just engaging with certain types of people, you gravitate towards people, they gravitate towards you. You build up this network without sometimes even recognizing you got it. And again, like you say, B, that's where a bit of coaching comes in to support you to see where you've gone on your journey, because sometimes we don't see it ourselves. We're working too hard and thinking we've got to be perfectionists and we've got to get it right and it's got to happen now, and I can't come back into the group and not have done this. And
Yeah.
we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, I think. And I mean, how do we manage that, folks? You know, okay, we're looking at niche at the moment, but how do we manage to manage that expectation we put on ourselves? Because I think that's one of my biggest problems I've had with this journey.
I look at it in two ways. One is manage it to a certain extent, the expectation I have on myself. However, I want to lean into it, because if I feel like if I don't, then I'll not get to where I want to get to. So I want to lean into that expectation of myself. I want to lean into, so we're kind of drifting off onto another topic here, which could be its whole episode on its own, but that being uncomfortable, getting out of your comfort zone, but the fear of it, I want to lean into that fear of it rather than trying to get away from that fear of being outside of your comfort zone. I want to lean into that, because you're never going to, in my eyes, I'm never going to be able to grow without leaning into that fear. Everything I've done where I've been successful has come from a place of being fearful of taking the first step on that journey. Set expectations for yourself. Don't try not to get overwhelmed, and that's where the management side of it comes from.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it's not like a task that I set myself. It's a case of I go for a walk and clear my head. So I go out for a walk with my little buddy Milo. That's my dog, by the way. I don't have a little friend called Milo. That's my dog. And we just go out for a walk.
As a creative person, that definitely works for me, because, you know, I do other stuff as well. I write poetry and stuff, but I can only do that when I've got a clear head. The more I pressure myself to do something, the less it comes, or the less it happens. So when I know there's things that I want to achieve, although I feel maybe a little overwhelmed because there's a lot of it, I'll take a step back. And there was a question there that you said, Ian, and I will always say, so what will happen if I don't do this? And I think that's a really key question to ask yourself. And so if I need to do this, how am I going to break it down into smaller pieces to manage it? And that was the same with the niche, because it got me into such a tither for so long. And then one day I just said, this has to stop. I need to start coaching. I need to start my business. This is just holding me back and it's ridiculous. And so I just picked it and off I went. And yeah, I just had to get to that point where it was enough was enough. And like I said, there's always questions I ask myself, and one of them is, if I don't do this, what will happen? You know, and sometimes it's a case of I don't end up doing it because it's not as important as I first thought it was. But it gives you that space and time to step back from it and anything you do outside of it all. Go for a walk. What do I do? Meditate. I go gardening. I love gardening. Anything like that, that just takes you away, gives you that space. And it's amazing when you give yourself headspace, what pops up.
Yeah, I think we've all got our tools, haven't we, that we use, like having a toolbox, and it's the ones that you recognize that are the ones that give us self-care but are essential to look essential as well. I mean, I'm like you, Ian, walking is the go-to, and when I do any of my little filming bits, I'm always out there because it just clears my head and I can just then create, which is lovely. But I think, again, we're sort of progressing onto different subjects slightly, aren't we? But I think that overwhelm for me was the biggest thing. I think and it was that what you said, Ian, about fear, but using it really positively. Whereas I think I've really struggled with that because of having to burn out from my own job. You know, I think at times it was just too much, and I thought, oh, you know, I had a constant yo-yo battle, roller coaster with myself about confidence. Again, it's another topic for another day, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think that going back to the niche, it's also what, you know, it's the intuitive gut feeling, isn't it? What feels good? What do you feel you can speak about? I think there's a classic statement going around, isn't it? What could you stand and talk about for 20 minutes quite happily? And, you know, maybe that helps you with something like that.
I think it would be good now for us just to talk about where we've come from niche wise and where we're at now, and just a very snippet of our journey and why we changed, if that's as we're talking niches. So off you go, Ian, because yours is going to be short and sweet, I guess.
Well, actually, mine started out with so I'm for those that don't know, obviously all you listeners, I'm a professional project manager, and so my initial niche was around project management, and I was just like, nah, nope. So yeah, my kind of process to get to my niche was, well, who do I want to help? What do I wish I had at the start of my journey that I can help people with now? That's how I came to my niche. And so I was going from one business to another, failing at all of them. And I couldn't figure out why. And then I had a coach myself, and they helped me figure out what it is that I wanted, etc. And then I was like, that is it. That is what has been missing for me, and that's what I want to help people with. So I'm essentially, my niche is me just a few years ago. And that's basically it. And now, when I was saying earlier, I want to tweak it slightly for the traveling side. I mean, again, that's me again, because I love traveling. I went traveling for a year around the US and all over the show, and it's just, yeah, I feel like I'm coaching me, which is nice to be my own coach as well.
Absolutely.
What about yourself, Dee?
Oh God, yeah.
So thank you, Ian. My niche has evolved over the whole of my life. I would say I have been working to this point, I think, from the word go. So my experience spans retail management, and I have been a business owner, I have been a teacher, and the things that you learn along the journey of doing all those different things brings you to where you are now, and will make your niche speak to you through that. But like everyone else, I've gone through changes in my niche as well. You know, I started out thinking, right, I want to help midlife professionals deal with when they get to a crossroads. How do they deal with that? And then I've been through changes where I was dealing and coaching only with small business owners, but that evolves because people approach me, and I realized that actually I could bring all of my experience to one thing, and what that boils down to is overwhelm. So a little bit about my story. I had a business, And then during the time that I was running my business, I got married and I had a child. And then sadly, I got divorced. So it wasn't in my plan. The divorce was not very, it's not something that you want for yourself, especially when there's a young child involved. But it was quite a horrible time for me. And to get myself through that took pretty much all that I had for a few years. So I've learned so much from that experience of going through the divorce and getting out there and dealing with life by myself and looking after another little human being. And then, so that kind of developed into wanting to work with other little human beings. So I trained as a teacher, which was wonderful, because I think if any single parents are out there listening to this, you understand that the school holidays are a big factor in how you how you live your life, really, because you live your life around this, looking after your children. So the teaching was great, but it also led me into quite a big burnout, because I was studying, I was teaching, I was working full time, I was looking after my daughter full time, I was everything I was doing everything in my life, and I couldn't, something had to go. So, I had to stop working for a couple of months, and I realized that the teaching just wasn't what I was hoping that it would be from a career perspective in the long term, because I couldn't do everything. And also I wanted to work for myself. It's quite difficult to talk about and actually I'm actually quite a private person, and the impact of that is probably something that I could still do with working on, but it taught me so much. It taught me how to deal with so many things, and it taught me where I wanted to learn more. So I started learning more about coaching, what it could do, and I experienced some great coaching moments that really got me to thinking, right, this is for me, my coaching. And then I started learning, doing courses, getting accredited, and all of that, which then meant I needed to choose a niche. So, and there we go. Then, like, that we all know that choosing a niche is mind-blowing, and it's not always going to be right the first time. I don't know anyone who has initially chosen a niche and is still doing that niche, except for maybe Ian, right? But so basically, I looked into myself to where my talents are, where my experience lies, and what I can offer. And basically, I'm good at organizing things. I can compartmentalize. I can see things beyond what is right in front of my face, and I can help my clients do that. So I work with people who are feeling overwhelmed at all the choices that life is throwing at them right now, and not knowing which direction to go in, not really having the tools to hand, because they do have the tools inside, not having the tools to hand to follow each possible path through to its result. And so what I do is I help them with their overwhelm. I help them to find that clarity that's so important, that you need to have a way forward. So you become clear on your objectives, you become clear on your priorities, you become clear on your action steps, you become clear on what the results are expected to bring you. And this is what I do. I work with men and women, and who just need to find that clarity and lose the feelings of overwhelm. Okay, listeners, I think that's a great place to take a break, and I'm going to tell you about my ebook, How to Achieve Clarity and Transform Your Life from Where You Are Right Now. It's a great little book full of ideas for you to start combating those feelings of overwhelm and to start thinking about, what is it I really want? What is the reason why I want it? And what is my vision? All these things will be covered in this little read to get you started on that journey towards finding clarity. Now, you can get a free download right now at www.darshnaqureshi.com. or Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. All my socials are there. And please just get in touch, and I'm very happy to send you a link. Now, it's back to the show. Go, B, go.
Okay, so mine, oh God, I started out that long ago. And body confidence was the first thing that came to my head, because I had struggled with image, weight, how I felt about myself, how I fitted into my family life as a youngster, and then, you know, when I got married as a young lady. And it was, you know, body confidence had overruled a huge part of my life. So that's where I started. And when I started to coach, and I realized actually that body confidence is just a part of something. Okay, so body confidence is about how you show up in the world. It is about you. It's not about, you know, finding the next diet, losing weight and stuff like that. That's the point. It's about becoming totally comfortable with who you are, exactly how you are, before you decide whether you want to change anything. So, you know, it's everybody has a different view on this, and it's got nothing to do with size. For me, body confidence is about how you feel about yourself, from the inside and the out. Okay. And when I started coaching people with it, it led into so many other things. So where it came from, and also the other things that come up around it, which are generally confidence, which are generally limiting beliefs, and there's a number of things. So that sort of moved me a little bit further into, and then I swapped to empowerment, because actually it involves all of that. It involves every part of when you don't feel good about yourself, and that isn't just bodily. That's brain, that's, you know, that's internal, that's the whole you. Okay. And so I moved into empowerment, and initially sort of dealing with unhappy midlifers, but they're successful. Okay, so they've done the blueprint, what I call the blueprint. You know, this life's blueprint that a lot of us are born into thinking. You know, you get married, you get a career, you get married, you have children. You know, as a woman, that is a blueprint, or it seems to be. And they've done all of that, but they weren't happy, because what they had never done is worked on themselves. Because as women, we have this fantastic way of putting ourselves to the bottom of the pile. We serve everybody else first, and we put ourselves at the bottom. And especially, I don't have children, but I have stepchildren. I know Dee and Sarah have got children, and I'm sure they'll say to me, they would put their children over themselves. And I get that, but actually there comes a point in your life when that needs to change. Sorry about that, just lost my screen. And there comes a point in your life when that needs to change, because everything changes, because children grow up and they move on and things change, and you're left stuck feeling unfulfilled, and you don't know why. You don't know necessarily why, because you feel guilty because you've got a lot, you know, you've achieved a lot. You might even have a lovely house, lovely car and everything, and you feel guilty because you think, you know, there's so many people worse off than me. Why should I feel, you know, why have I got these feelings? And so that's what I went into. But I'll be honest with you, that's slightly transitioning at the moment. And that's because I'm transitioning. And I've realized that actually the one thing that I love to do, and that is going to be part of my future, is to be a motivational speaker. And that's where I'm going into. And so my niche is slightly changing into helping women find their voice. And that voice, whether it's for motivational speaking, whether it's to make a presentation at work and you're really worried, or is it just because you keep saying yes to things that are detrimental to your health and your well-being and your life, and you should be saying no, but you don't want to upset anybody or feel guilty about saying no? Or is it the other way around, where you're holding yourself in one place, but you want to be somewhere else, but you're not saying yes to making that happen? So that's where I'm going to, because like Ian said, that's me.
Belinda, B, can I have a bit of that, please? I want that.
You can certainly have
Definitely,
it.
definitely.
Of course, my darling.
Yes, I'll see you after. I'll see you after.
Okay.
We're all so there, aren't we? It's like, oh, what else is there? Yeah.
So Sarah, now I feel like yours is such an interesting story and your
I don't
journey
know.
around your niche can go on for a long time and it'll
The whole
captivate
episode.
everybody.
I don't know.
It,
Do I
it
do
could
I do
literally
the
be
lengthy version or should I do a synopsis?
Well, I do think that Sarah's going to have a whole episode to herself at some point on this.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me do the journey because, like you say, we're talking about niches and how we found our niches, aren't we, or how we've gravitated towards it. So again, background, it all comes from your background and looking at your strengths. I mean, I've been an occupational therapist for a very long time, just retired. Way. And it's been a great career. And ironically, it's a role. No one really knows what we do unless they have someone, an OT involved in their lives or their families' lives. But the gist of it is to we assess people holistically and we support them with any aspect of their life that they feel they're not independent in. So it's quite a forerunner for coaching, really. It seemed quite a natural move towards something. I was looking for something that I could do once I retired. I thought, I've had battles with burnout at different times in the career. It's taken a lot of stuffing out of me. And I wanted to feel autonomous and in control of what I wanted to do. I knew I got a lot of skills I could offer to people, and I didn't want to be hemmed in by all the policies and the red tape that a lot of these big organisations now struggle with. So I wanted to leave the NHS. So I started my own journey through burnout to help myself get over it. And at that point, I was very much looking like we've mentioned, really, women at a crossroads in their lives. And I was going to go for the similar age to me in the sort of, say, 40s, 50s, where women hit so many crossroads, which, again, we said we don't often put ourselves first. There's a very lack of that because there's children, there's jobs, there's the house, there's partners, there's aging parents, the works. Generally, we're pretty low on the pecking order there. So I wanted to support women who hit those crossroads to negotiate where they would like to go. I mean, I've had empty nester, I'm a divorcee, I brought children up mainly on my own. And it's been a very tight unit. So that was a big one when they started to fly the nest. And it's dealing with that. So it was multifactorial. It's like, well, how do you define this niche? That was my thing. How do you make it small enough to make it work when you advertise it or whatever? So that was what I was doing first. And I was an empowerment coach. That's my title. It still is my title. But since then, I've been on my own quite unique journey with regard to my adoption, which is a long story. I think I'll save a lot of it for another time. But to put it in a nutshell, is I was searching for my birth mother, not till I was an adult. It was fine. I had a good childhood. I got two brothers that were adopted too, so we were all in the same hymn sheet, that we all had birth mothers that gave us up, and we had a lovely time. Our mum and dad wanted us. They told us about being adopted. We didn't have any big hiccups with knowing that when we were older, and had a very idyllic life in lots of ways, very rural. It's only as I got older and I had my own children, you suddenly realise, whoa, their genetic bits with regard to their mother stops with me. And through life you get a lot of questions about your medical side. Does cancer run in the family? Does diabetes? Don't know, adopted. Standard reply to that. So I was more interested then. And then sadly in 2007, I lost both my big brother, Dan, very suddenly, and my lovely mum, my beautiful mum, who was the best mum in the world. She genuinely was. And that halved my family, and that was a really tough year. So, and other parts of my family were doing different things, and I felt very, very alone. I thought, I can't do this. What can I do to make things feel whole, or give me roots or something? And that's when I started the real journey, looking for my birth mother. And yeah, ironically, it's always looking for my birth mother. So going on from that back to niches and stuff, I changed my niche. Incredible journey I've been on, and I'm still going on. I'm learning so much more about what adoption means, how it's a label you have, that you make meet lots of other people that have it, but that is what you have in common. And the trauma of adoption is what you have in common, but the rest of it, we're individuals and we've all got different stories. What I realised is I never went there about the actual birth abandonment because I had a good, apparently it's classic adoptee speak. It's like, well, no, I'm fine, thanks very much. I've got my family and I'm okay, Tar. And I genuinely thought I was, and I am. But with looking at the actual mechanisms of what trauma is when you're abandoned by your birth mother, they say it's the most traumatic trauma you could ever go through. And it's invisible. And what I say to people, especially if they've got children or stepchildren or anything like that, imagine that you put your baby in a cot and you walk away. You numb what you feel as a mother, but concentrate on what that baby is going through. That gives you an idea. The one person that should be there for you, nurturing you, feeding you, keeping you warm, keeping you safe, all that has just gone, literally, as you're born. And however good the people that come into your life, and I did have the most wonderful adopted mum, do you not smell like my mum? It's instinct. It's pure instinct that is gone. So they say, basically, looking at this neurodiversity and plasticity, our brains rewire from a very, very young age to cope with this. We survive. Which for me was like, whoa, that's a bit of a light bulb moment, because I joked that I came out of the womb because I knew, finding out about my mother, I wasn't wanted. Let's not dress this up and go, oh, she must have thought about me. No, I genuinely wasn't wanted. So I thought, oh God, that explains. I've joked about coming out the womb with an independence stamped on my backside or tattooed on my bum, and that's been so significant through my life, so significant. So what it's done for me is made me very passionate, as you can tell. I'm sorry about the voice because I'm not being very well, about supporting people through their own journeys. I'm an expert in lots of ways of coaching. I'm not an expert in adoption, but I know what it's like to be through that. And I have decided, and it's a decision, we all can make decisions. I think that's a big thing about coaching. Sometimes we need the support to find the pathway we want. And that's what I want to do. We can all make decisions. We can all decide how we move forward with being adopted. Do we deal with the trauma? Do we let it define us? How do we find acceptance? There's so many pillars to this. There's so many topics under this umbrella. And I'm finding my own as I go along. So, but I do know the roots of myself as an individual, and maybe it's because I've had a varied life and I'm older. I think no, I'm accepting, wanting to accept what's happened, and I'm determined to take positives from it, so it doesn't define me as a trauma victim. So my niche now is I'm an empowerment coach who specialises in supporting people who are affected by adoption. And within that remit, I would like to work with adopted parents as well, because what I'm finding from researching so much of this unusual topic is they often get bad press. And it's more to do with the authorities that were around at the time, the system at the time. And I thought, it's not fair. Don't get me wrong, there's always going to be people, they take on a stranger's baby. They've not possibly had babies before. It's a completely new journey. But let's not make them out to be the bad people. We've all got different birth mother stories. And and the ones that have been forced to abandon their babies, which happened a lot in the 1960s when I was born, that's another tragedy, isn't it? But I think it's wanting to be realistic, open and honest and transparent about this type of journey. And I want that for people that come to me as a coach, to find out where they really are and where they would like to go in the future. The next step in my life is I'm retiring from OT. It's not taking over my life as much. I want to do this. It's something I can do for the foreseeable. Yeah.
I think you got such a powerful story, Sarah, that everybody needs to know. And like we say, we'll do a full episode on just your story and all of our stories, because we've all got our
Yeah,
own
we've all
unique
got a
story. But
brilliant
I could
story.
sit here and listen to you talk all day about
Even
your
with a croaky voice,
story.
thank you,
It's
Ian.
it's so fascinating. And one thing I want to kind of say for the listeners out there is, I don't know whether you've noticed a thread from all of our individual stories, but everything links back to where we were at a certain point in our journey.
Yeah.
Or where we are in our journey. So I don't know whether that's a bit of kind of reflection that you can do if you are out there and you are struggling with picking a niche, and it is, as B was talking about, overwhelming you. Maybe think about your own story, and what might have been missing for you that you can potentially help with. I don't know whether there's anything, D, that you want to add as a bit of advice for anyone who is on the starting a coaching journey, but they're struggling with a niche, maybe.
Take your own experience, because you're not teaching, you're not mentoring, you're not telling people what to do, but having had the experience, you will have a wealth of, you'll have a pot of relevant, important questions. So, if I were to say, oh, I'm a coach for people affected by adoption, I don't have that pot that you've got, Sarah, to draw on. And while you're not going to tell people what to do, potentially, you're going to ask the right questions. And I won't be able to do that. So if you're looking for your niche, look within yourself, as Ian just said. Look at your experience, your life, how you've dealt with things, and go for that. Don't be afraid of getting it wrong either, because as Sarah's just said, she was looking at something completely different and then came to this point. And we all have lots of parts of us. We all have different parts of us. So, when I think about the teaching or the business or the whatever, and what we're going to do in the future, there are still things that I want to explore in my life. So maybe those will then turn around and become part of my niche. And the same for anybody out there listening. If you're thinking, oh my God, what should I do? I've got 10 things that I love, that I've got experience in. Choose the one that draws you the most, that makes you speak about your subject, like Sarah has just spoken about her subject, and then go for that.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
Sarah, what about yourself? Anything to add?
I'm quite an intuitive person. And I think I've learned over time that it's okay to change. It's okay to move forward. It's good. I think it's definitely something that needs to come from your heart, because you can be passionate about it. You don't, and it makes it easier, to be honest. Trust yourself a little bit. Just sit back. Don't rush. I think this is what we've all learned. Don't rush this journey. Give yourself time, breathe. I mean, I'm out of all four of us, I'm the one that's sat back more, giving myself a lot more time. But actually, when I've done that, things flow.
Yeah.
I like Ian's take on the fear, but I need a bit more of that. But let things flow as well. Don't bash at the rock face and constantly berate yourself, saying you've not found the right place, whatever. So trust in yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, and that kind of links into where I was going wrong for a couple of years when I was first starting out, not in coaching, but trying to set up all these. I was trying the wrong thing, because I never took that step back. It was only after I took that step back and had that coach myself, and they helped me figure out what it is that I want, what was my purpose and vision and all that kind of stuff. And then I found coaching, and I was like, that's the thing. So yeah, take that step back. And there's one question I now incorporate into my coaching with my clients, because I'm on the business side, so I'm helping them figure out the niches. There's a question I ask right at the very end when they're ready to pull the trigger and go. I ask them, okay, so in 10 years' time, if you have not achieved what you want to achieve, would you still have enjoyed the journey? And if they say no, then to me, they've not figured out their niche quite yet, or potentially their business quite yet. There's something not quite right there yet, because you just should still be enjoying the journey along the way. That's my final kind of take on it, and I'm going to shut up now.
That's a good light bulb moment, Ian. That's actually given me a light bulb. Yeah, fabulous.